So usually I start with something that's
Yes.
off screen before I dive into like how you think and how your brain works. So great. If you
hmm
could tell me about it, what it is, or if you made it, why'd you make it?
The very first thing that comes to mind for sure is that last year on my birthday, I went to do an unplugged stay. Are you familiar with them?
Yes, recently though, I need to get them on. That's kind of
Yeah.
the perfect thing for this. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you done one? I mean, it was amazing. So I always like to be somewhere like cozy in nature on my birthday if I can help it. And so my boyfriend and I did an unplugged stay in East Sussex, I think, where basically you get a cabin for 4 days and you've got no technology at all. And I was very interested in that because I was like, when is the last time in my life, if I really think about it, that I had no technology at all
Mhm.
for 3 or 4 days. So I was very curious to see what it would be like. We basically, you put your phone in a box, you lock it in a box, and you get a little Nokia in case you need an emergency call or whatever.
Mhm.
But you're basically in the middle of nowhere and you get, you have a radio, and that's like your only form of technology.
Interesting.
And the fun thing, I mean, it was great. I loved it. It was like I would say not difficult at all. It just felt like the days really stretched to be a lot longer. And yeah, like honestly, I feel like every day felt twice as long. And the fun thing was that we had a car and we decided to go drive to nearby towns and explore. Doing so without a phone, we had to go and find someone that would sell paper maps because we
Yeah.
needed like a map
Wow.
of the whole area. Um, oh, because we need to get there somewhere. We were trying to get to Hastings, and so it was a journey. Because at first we were trying to find a whole map of the area, then we were trying to navigate, driving around with like a huge map, and it was just something I've never really done before. When you have no other option, you just don't have your phone with you. You don't even know what time it is, and it was great. It was perfect. I would love to do it maybe like once a year. And then when I got back from the stay, I was really keen to cut down my screen time like drastically, and that's what I did. And that was just over a year ago. But ever since I got back, I think my screen time before that had been like 7 hours a day. And I remember seeing the statistic of how many years of your life that amounted to, and I was like, mm-mm. And so since then, it's been like 2 to 3 hours a day consistently, and it was kind of such a wake up call, I think, to just really actually limit my screen time and not just keep ignoring those focus filters and think I'm doing something, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Did you ever find yourself like reaching for your phone while you were in the cabin or something?
Uh, Not that I remember, to be honest. I think we had brought so many things with us and we had just so much to do that I think I built like 2 Lego sets in one evening, you know?
Amazing. That's a dream day.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, it was a dream day. So it was great. I do recommend doing that on your birthday because I think birthdays especially tend to be such like a loud day.
Hmm.
Like everyone's contacting you, your friends and family. But for me, it was just like completely quiet and I loved it. It was a nice little experiment.
I would love to do that. I have a notoriously bad birthday. It's the 5th of January, which is, well, one after Christmas. So everyone's broke. People doing dry Jan, everything's closed. It's cold. But
Oh,
that
that's
kind of
true.
that kind of
Yeah.
sounds perfect, to be honest. So what did you like about it? And what did you dislike about it?
There was honestly nothing I disliked about it. And maybe one thing is that I was like getting work anxiety on the weekdays. I was like, I need to check my emails a little bit. Like, what if I have
Hmm.
like a client email that I need to check? And I think it's harder to do unplugged if you run your own company.
Yeah.
But it was fine. I think I was just really in my head because there was like it was a weekend, but then there was a Monday as well. And I think by Tuesday morning I was like, I just need to check my emails. But it was fine. I was just really thinking of all the worst case scenarios.
I can
But
see that.
but yeah, I was just like, at least I feel like I need to know kind of what's waiting for me when I get back work-wise. I don't know. I was getting a lot of work anxiety, but everything was like completely fine. So that's the only thing I can think of that was a little bit of a challenge. But what I loved about it was that it felt like such a great use of my time, and it felt like of course it feels like you're as present as you've ever been, and then it's really nice to sort of realize how much the days stretch when technology is not even an option. When it's not even on your mind. Because I think it's one thing to have your phone in a different room, but know that you could get it. And
Hmm.
it's a different thing to know that you don't even have the option of being on your phone or having a computer with you or whatever. So I think I really enjoyed that because it was like completely unapologetic presence in the moment. And I just wish it was easier to replicate that day to day.
I think it's quite interesting because I was speaking to another person, Daisy, I had on. Shout out to Daisy. She was
Oh
talking
yeah, I
about
know
how
Daisy.
she's talked about how next year is she's seeing next year as the year of the unplug and how people are quitting social media. And I think this unplug thing is such a good idea. I think it's really probably going to kick off quite a lot next year potentially.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think it's great.
Well, I'd love to dive into some questions about like how you think and a bit about you. So, how do you set yourself up for your best thinking?
My best thinking. One very practical
Hmm.
tool that I use to set myself up is I never stop talking about this, I swear, but I listen to brown noise and it instantly puts me in a flow state. And I think I do my best thinking when I am listening to brown noise. And now I think, when I think, how do I set myself up for thinking? It's literally how do I create the conditions for emergence for good thinking? And for me, it's a matter of really observing for myself when I can be the most creative and the most clear-headed, and then how I can replicate those conditions every time that I need them. So that's one thing. And I learned that when I had to write my book in 4 months in 2023. And um, I had to write 65,000 words in 4 months. And I'm not a person that is really like very easily focused, I think, on just one thing. I'm very naturally like a multitasker and my brain is kind of scattered all the time. And I was like, how are we gonna do that then? So I figured I somehow stumbled upon brown noise, and every time I tried it, I would just sit down and write like 5,000 words, and it felt like I didn't even blink. It was just like so I would lock in the fullest sense of the word. So that is one thing. Another thing is definitely journaling and writing a lot. I think I don't know how I ever used to live and work without journaling and having a way to clear my head so that I can then do better thinking. But yeah, now it's very important to me to put pen to paper and get things on the page. And I think the way that when you write on paper, you tap into like a different energy that allows you to clear your mind and sort of think deeper than when you're just typing in a computer. And because the motion of writing on paper like flows more and I think kind of passes through your body and allows you to genuinely think more clearly and more deeply. And I think, yeah, ever since I started implementing that as well, it's become kind of a very consistent ritual.
Mm. There's a lot to unpack there, so thank you for that. First of all, what's brown noise? I've only really heard of white noise. I myself listen to it's kind of a weird new obsession of I have thunderstorms. If I really need to zone in, I'll stick on thunderstorms,
Mm.
which is quite nice. So yeah, what's
Oh,
brown noise?
I kind of I kind of need to try that probably. I like that. Brown noise is just a different, I guess, frequency of white noise. I'm not really sure. I think I had just seen somewhere that like white noise can help you sleep. There's some other types of noise that help you do whatever, and brown noise can help you focus. And at that time, I just really needed whatever would help me focus the most. And so I just tried it and literally never went back.
So
It
that's.
sounds pretty much the same as white noise, It's just, yeah,
Mhm.
it's just like a static noise.
I wonder what the science is behind that, the difference between them and how they make you think.
I don't know.
I need to look into that.
I don't know.
Uh, so yeah, you said what was that? 6,500 words in 4 months for your book.
65,000.
5,000. That's crazy. So yeah, how did you do that?
Yeah. Um, I locked in.
Respect.
I think, yeah, I learned that it taught me something valuable, which was that I had never understood before how much deadlines can determine what you can actually accomplish.
Hmm.
I think when I was in uni, my dissertation was 12,000 words, and I remember having like 8 months to write it. And I was like, oh my God, this is like I'm cutting it so tight, And now I had to do
Yeah.
I had to do, what was it, 6,000 words like every week and a half nearly. So I think I realized how when you set really ambitious deadlines or you have really ambitious, difficult deadlines, you will figure out a way to do it. And so I knew that I had to do, I think it was like 4,000-ish words every week. And so I became very intentional about my process, my brown noise, how I limited distractions, when I felt more like um, kind of what things around me I felt were more conducive to being able to focus and write well. And I just really like try to study myself and replicate the things intentionally that worked and remove the things that didn't. So I think it was like a lot of self-awareness because I was like, I don't really have that much time to experiment and fail.
That's awesome. And congratulations on that. There's so many things that I could touch on that
Thank
you've
you.
achieved already so far. So,
Thank
well,
you. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
I'll get onto that a little bit later. So how do you avoid getting like repetitive in your thinking?
I think the biggest thing is probably journaling
Hmm.
because since we're talking about thinking specifically, I find that it's a lot easier for me to think through writing, and it's not as easy for me to think by speaking or by just thinking, you know? So I think I'm a lot more likely to fall into cycles and go over the same things if I'm just trying to meditate on a topic. But then if I start writing on it, that's how my brain works best and allows me to analyze and go deeper. And it's always a good challenge because when I start writing about a topic, even for myself, just journaling or whether it's like a Substack I'm writing, I think I'm very quickly, immediately faced with where my blockers are and where I'm not making sense in my head. And then it's very clear on the page where I go from there and what things I need to figure out to separate. And does that make any sense?
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think writing is a really big one.
I think the tactility of getting stuff down on paper and being able to stream your consciousness a little bit is there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, for sure.
As an art director, it's how I always start when I'm trying to get an idea down. It's always big A3 piece of paper and just almost brain mapping and stuff like that. I think the tactility of it is,
On a big piece of paper.
yeah. I like
I
the
love that. I
I'm a
never do that,
very
but I like the idea.
I'm a very visual thinker, so like
Hmm.
I need to be able to see because my as you said like before, your head jumps around to lots of different things. Mine, I think, I don't know
Yeah.
whether that's a generational thing because of social media and all the constant attention, or it's just the way my brain works. So I need to have it like visually
Yeah.
right in front of me.
And have you ever done like sort of morning pages or the artist's way type of daily thinking, stream of consciousness?
I haven't. No. What's that? The morning pages.
The Artist's Way is this book by Julian Cameron that's very famous in sort of creative, but also not only creative circles.
Hmm.
Just I think it's kind of reemerged in the past few years because the book functions as like a 12-week course where every week you get some tools and some exercises to do that are supposed to really connect you very directly with your creativity in like a really tangible way. And a lot of people that do all 12 weeks and a lot of friends of mine that have done it and stuck to it really credit a lot of success to it and say it really changed their life. I only did maybe like 5 or 6 weeks of it, and I would love to do it in 2026 properly. But one of the tools that the book requires you to use every single day is morning pages, which means when you wake up, ideally before you do anything else, journaling 3 pages stream of consciousness that don't have to make any sense or like use punctuation or whatever. Just
Ah,
3 pages, sort of no matter what, even if you feel you have nothing to say, because that allows you, according to Julia Cameron, to tap into your more creative brain and sort of think deeper and sets you up for the day in that type of note. And
love that.
I think Morning Pages is also probably the hardest full of the book to stick to for all 12 weeks because it's every single morning. Like,
Hmm.
and life gets in the way, or you'll just do 2 pages and then be like, I just don't have anything more to say.
Yeah.
But I think if you push yourself and really stick to it, it's supposed to be really unlocking.
Well, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'll do it alongside you in January. Then I think that's such a
Yeah,
interesting
that would be
thing.
great.
All right, done. Let's do it.
I think I've unintentionally started forming a little Artist Way circle with some of my friends. I can take you in that as well. And on like
Yeah,
January
please
is the
do. I'd
time
love
we all
to.
do it.
Love that. I love that. So, do you use technology to support your thinking? How do you know when enough screen time to step away?
Do I use technology to support my thinking? Honestly, no, I don't think so. I think I'm a very analog thinker. The only thing I can think of is if I'm listening to
Mhm.
my brown noise, or if I am, or if I want to think deeply about a topic and I decide to like write like an essay about it. That's the only times I would actually use technology in the process. When I know, did you ask how I know when enough screen time is enough?
Yeah, so as someone that's constantly on their screens, and you mentioned earlier looking at your screen time, so not necessarily just
Yeah,
for your thinking, like it's knowing when to step away. So
yeah.
I use technology in my thinking. I use a lot of ChatGPT and other sort of AI stuff to help me get to different places.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's something to be said for knowing when to step away from the screen. And I think that line is becoming less obvious.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a good point. Well, I think I have definitely used ChatGPT before to help me like dive deeper into a topic, but I it's not part of my process because I think I never found it really useful. I'm not sure exactly why. I think because I found that it would just sort of not really help me go deeper, and that's maybe because I'm not prompting well, probably, but it would just sort of be mirroring the circles I was already going around in. And hmm, I think you can feel when you're doing quality thinking and being creative and you're connected with yourself and your thoughts, and when it's just a bit too much relying on technology. Like for me, it's definitely a feeling, and I can tell that if it feels like I'm outsourcing what I'm trying to get to, then I just have to notice that in the moment and be like, I'm not actually doing anything useful right now. Like, step away from the screen. Yeah, I'd say probably something like that. But how do you know since you use those tools a lot? Like, what's
Well,
kind of your mark?
good question. And I also was recently watching a podcast with you, and you were talking about how to stop outsourcing your thinking, which I thought landed quite well.
Oh, wait, which one was that?
I couldn't tell you
Why
the
did I
exact
forget
name,
that?
but I'll
Interesting.
link you
Yeah,
after.
I literally forgot.
That's all good. That's all good. I think for me, well, I guess part of the reason I do these talks is to get an understanding of how other people do it, because that line is kind of blurry to me a little bit.
Hmm.
I obviously start analog. I use AI a lot, and obviously with the industry going the way it is, I mean, all you have to do is scroll on LinkedIn. I don't know if yours is the same as mine, but it's constantly talking about new updates of AI, and all
Horrible.
this is awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess this is almost my way of trying to figure that out, talking to people and seeing how people that are maybe in that have done more, or like maybe I see their brain, or like trying to understand how their brain works, and how they step away
Yeah.
from the screens and stuff. So for me, I think at the moment I can sort of, as you say, feel it. And the one thing you don't have when you're using AI all the time is that stream of consciousness, and that, I don't know, that
Yeah.
zonal stuff where you're just getting stuff done. You kind of
Mm,
lose that when you're using AI. So, but yeah, the line's a little
yeah.
bit blurry for me, I have to say.
And I think that kind of think when I'm writing something really long, like a book, a chapter, and that requires me to think very deeply, it's really hard to do that and get anything of value without getting in a flow state.
Hmm.
And I think it's very hard to get in a flow state if you're talking to AI, right? Because you're just not really in that state. Like you might be focused, but I don't think you're as engaged as you would be if you were sort of really connected, just like you and your thoughts and nothing else. And so I think that after a point, I kind of know that I can't get to the next level if I'm using AI or if I'm using external tools, and I really just need to focus as much as possible. And that's a difficult thing about sort of these like long form topics, or where you have to think so deeply to put like 10 things in order, if you know what I mean. I think
Hmm.
the hardest thing for me is that you can't, it's hard to step away and do something else and then come back to it, uh, because your best thinking and your best ideas and the most value you can really put on the page or create comes when you get in a state where you can keep going deeper and deeper and deeper.
I think that
Yeah,
what you just
I
said is,
think, yeah,
I think what you just said is really valuable. Actually, you're almost cheating value by ignoring the flow state. And I think that is quite an interesting perspective.
Mm.
So, as someone that has already achieved so much, I was wondering if you had any advice for young people that were looking to build a creative career on their own terms, as you put it.
Any advice? Yes, so much.
Yeah, maybe
5,000
that's
words
a
of
bit
it
broad.
if you want to go. But I think if I could narrow it down to just a few of the most
Hmm.
important things, the first one would be to really, okay, let's think about it. Okay, there's a
Okay.
few parts. One of them is if you just want to build a creative career, I think the first step would be to really connect and understand what you actually want and what it is that you feel passionate about or what gets you really engaged, what makes you feel a lot of momentum to work towards it, like what makes you feel excited. Because I think creative careers are the easiest and the most successful when you position yourself in a way that allows you to work through expressing yourself really authentically. So what does that look like for you? Like what medium? What does it look like? I think figuring that out is important, and not trying to replicate what anyone else is doing. I think really just understanding for yourself what gives you that type of engagement and momentum that's going to kind of keep you going before you're seeing any success. What you could do just for yourself if there were no results. And I think that's very important. The second thing is also understanding that once you find that thing, getting over the mental blocks that say that like it's not viable to go after it, or it's impossible, or it's like not valid for a career, kind of like scrapping all of those things and realizing that like not only is it more possible than you think, you also kind of do owe it to yourself to go after it because it's kind of pointing you in the direction of where you're going to be feeling most fulfilled in your life if you pursue it. And I think that's really important. And then thirdly, the most important, more practical thing is to me developing a bias for action in everything that you do and sort of cultivating intentionally high agency as a person, figuring out where you stop yourself from getting things done and then becoming someone who gets things done. Because I think that's without that, it's really hard to accomplish anything, and it's really hard to build a creative career that's unconventional and isn't as like set in stone as others where you can just go from step 1 to 2 to 3. I think with creative careers and unconventional paths in general, the more of like a high agency, I guess, person you are, the more likely you are to find unconventional ways to make it work and to put yourself in spaces that maybe no one else thought about, to try things that others are too scared of, like rejection to try, or too scared of judgment, or all of those things. Really just being able to push yourself to doing things consistently and to putting yourself out there consistently without letting those like external fears and opinions get in your way. And of course, I could analyze this for hours, but yeah, to keep it concise, I think I hope that made sense, and I hope it
Yeah,
doesn't
of
sound
course.
too broad, but that's my best advice.
I think it's amazing advice. Thank you. And I think you touched on a lot of things that I'd already read about you, so the personal agency. I think the taking actions part, even speaking for myself, and doing this podcast is not something I'd originally pictured in my life, but trying new things and actually doing things and not being afraid if they're not great to begin with. I think
Yeah,
I'm currently at the mindset of if everyone I do gets a little bit better, then that's enough really, and you'll eventually get somewhere, I
I love
think.
that. Yeah, I agree.
And you also you speak a little bit about increasing your area for serendipity, which I really love.
hmm
And I think by doing that action that you're doing just that, and also not being afraid to reach out to people
Exactly.
because just everyone's
Exactly.
so lovely. They either won't respond to you or they're nice. It's either that, but they're
Exactly.
the two
Yeah, no one's
options.
gonna be like, get out of my way.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just gonna say that I think putting yourself out there consistently is what ends up increasing your surface area for serendipity because you don't know yet what people or what opportunities or what rooms are looking for someone like you if you don't allow them to find you. And I think that's why it's so important as a creative person to figure out what sort of expression feels nice to you and feels authentic, and you could just keep doing it no matter what, and then just do more and more of that because that's what's going to eventually kind of allow all the right people and opportunities to find you. I think kind of not hiding yourself and not hiding your most genuine expression and the things you actually want to put out in the world is very important.
I love that. So you've built a community around Gen Z and obviously your company. There's there's so many different things that I could speak of, so we'll probably have to do this again where we touch on every different topic. But yeah, so you're obviously founder of the Z Link. So you've built your community around Gen Z voices and creating empowerment. But like, who do you go to when you need a different perspective? And if you need one or feel you need one?
Perspective on what?
So, so your company, the Z Link, is about marketing for Gen Z, right? And it's a fully all your
Hmm.
employees are Gen Z, and which is kind of awesome. I've never really heard of a company that does that. So I'm wondering, is there ever an opportunity in which having only Gen Z perspectives, do you ever need to
Yeah,
branch out?
of course. Yeah, of course. I think one big thing is that the clients that we work with are very often, I mean, 90% of the time, not Gen Z.
Of course.
So by definition, I think our work tends to be very like intergenerational and full of different perspectives, which I enjoy. And then I think, for what it's worth now, like as our team has grown in the past few years, we definitely have a few people that like are not Gen Z and are just like young millennials and whatever. And I think, the cutoff doesn't matter as much, but I think
Hmm.
we're very open to working with whoever has an interesting perspective to share. And at the same time, I find it very valuable to have those conversations with the clients that we work with that are older and they want to hear from us, but they also want to have a discussion and sort of understand how we can combine our different views to accomplish what they want to accomplish. So that's one thing. And then I think because we're such a Gen Z team, from the start, I've been very intentional to not be like boxed into an echo chamber. So I think we've never really fallen into that because we've always been so hyper aware of it, I suppose. Because as you say, yeah, there can be dangers to just having like we don't want to have a singular perspective and that's it. So I think we've been very much like trying to, from the very start, like 5.5 years ago, go as much as possible in the other direction.
Wow. In 5.5 years, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. It's been a while.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of you've done so much already with your life, and I'm sorry to keep touching on this, and people often focus on that fact. But what's one question you wish people asked you more?
Mm, Honestly, I feel like people ask really great questions. Like I love the questions that you're asking. I
Hmm.
think the questions I enjoy the most are like the questions that are not about like Gen Z marketing. I think
Okay,
I think
let me just delete my next
by
four
now
questions.
no
I judge.
but I think well no the questions that I genuinely enjoy discussing a lot are those that are more well like all your questions so far I've really enjoyed because they're questions that no one's ever really asked me before, sort of about thinking, about creativity, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think things where there's not like any specific question, but I really am happy when I go on a podcast and it's like a discussion about things that are more than just like where my answer can be a statistic about Gen Z, and it's a lot more
Hmm.
about sort of all the various things that I've learned as a person, sort of setting up this little universe of things. Yeah.
Hmm. Sure. And I'm sorry. I'm now realizing that these questions are bouncing around a little, like how we were talking about earlier. But so
No, don't
personal
worry.
agency.
Literally, and do feel free to, if you have any Gen Z marketing question, keep it. No, you
I
can
just
ask it.
crossed them all out. So yeah, personal agency, so I'm just looking at my notes, but personal agency
Hmm.
is something I'm super interested in, and I just kind of wondered what personal agency looks like for you.
For me, it looks like every single time I have an idea for anything, I immediately write it down, and it's to do. It's instantly, it's not like an idea in my journal. It's not in my notes app. It's in my to-do list. Like I think, yeah, it's very important for me to just instantly, whenever I have an idea, like I'll just do it. So it's very simple, really. There's no need to really overthink things that much. And I think if I ever notice myself delaying something, putting it off, not really wanting to do it, it's either because it's not the right thing for me or because I'm scared of something. And if it's not the right thing, then that's a good sign. I'm just not going to do it. But if I'm just scared of something and that's stopping me, then that's a really good sort of opportunity to challenge those things and figure out what's holding me back from like what my next level could be. So being aware of the blockers that you have stopping you from doing the things that you really want to do, or from doing things that you know would be really helpful to you, to your career, but that you just keep finding yourself not doing. I think one of the things I hear most often around me is from creative friends, especially, it's like everyone wants to create content and put themselves out there. And every year, this is like my year, I'm finally going to do it. And then they never do
Hmm.
it. And that's, I think, such a common sort of Gen Z problem because we know that creating content and putting ourselves out there could impact our career in massive ways, but a lot of people just find themselves never doing it and having it at the back of their head as I really should get into that, but I just don't want to or don't know how or I don't know how to like position myself or like a million different questions. And I think those types of things like that are the ones that high agency for me would mean really looking at that and being like, okay, am I just being lazy? Am I scared of being perceived online? Or do I just plainly have a reason to really not want to express myself? Kind of deconstructing the things that you don't want to do that you know would be beneficial and understanding why, and then maybe doing them.
I think that's an amazing point. It's the why, finding out why. If you don't want to do something or you want to do something and you're not doing it, the why is something I think is really important for people to look into. And I
Yeah.
mean, the content thing of, I mean, I've definitely been subject to saying I'll do something. And then it's like that age old, I'll join the gym or I'll start on Monday or I'll join the gym in
Yeah,
January,
exactly.
like that kind of thing. But yeah, I think there is just like, especially as maybe it's a Gen Z, it's sort of a millennial thing as well. It's the fear of judgment, I guess, from peers and friends and stuff. But I think what's quite important that at least I've learned, and I think you'll probably reiterate, is that that goes away, and people don't really.
Yeah.
It's as bad as it sounds. People don't really care that much. So like, why not
Yeah.
just do it?
Exactly. People really don't care as much as you think. And I think
Mm,
sometimes, like, there have been cases where you'll find out that they do, and maybe like your worst fears are coming to life, and someone thinks that like your content's terrible and thinks you're
hmm.
cringe and annoying, and like they want you to fail. Like that might actually happen. And I think then you just realize, okay, well, I can survive this. It actually doesn't impact anything about how I want to live my life and where I'm headed. And no external opinion really does matter when you are expressing yourself as authentically as possible, because that's not something that you can or should ever change.
Hmm.
Then, if that sort of brings out anything in people that they dislike, any insecurity or whatever, then that's really not your problem. And yeah, all of these things, I think, eventually it gets a lot easier, as you said. And once you do it and you do it again and again and again, you realize it was just never that bad. And I think most of the time you'll be caught by surprise by how nice people are and how supportive. I think, yeah, I see that like maybe 95% of the time that you'll be just like positively surprised by how receptive people are instead of like judgmental.
For sure. And it's just the you shouldn't fear being bad at something. Just put it out there, as you say, just take action. I think it's so important. So I do have some Gen Z questions. If you're okay to answer those.
Let's do it. Let's do
Okay,
it.
great. So, well, I have two anyway. So, as you're properly immersed in Gen Z culture, what's a trend that you're loving so much that you keep sharing it with your friends?
A Gen Z trend.
It doesn't.
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
thank you.
Are we talking like a social media trend or like
I think open to what you want to interpret it as.
trying to think of what it is that I do keep sharing with my friend? That's a good question. I think Gen Z trends move so quickly that like it's hard to think of anything that lasts for more than 3 days.
Fair enough.
To be honest, the things I share with my friends are just like really stupid, like Gen Z memes. Um, so like, those don't tend to be very consistent. But I think what I find interesting about your question is someone told me once, like another fellow Gen Z marketer, and I found that so useful that whenever you're working on like marketing campaigns or looking for trends or trying to figure out what resonates with people in terms of trends that they love, just look in your own group chats. And it's so immediate. It's like you don't need to be researching like top trends of 2025. Just genuinely look at your own group chats and you'll find so much about what trends are actually resonating with Gen Z in the real world. So I've done that at times when trying to figure out like what trends do people actually like. But yeah, that doesn't answer your question, but yeah, there
Absolutely
we
fine.
go.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And then I guess the other one being that you spent years obviously helping brands understand Gen Z. What is something that people get still hilariously wrong about Gen Z?
Honestly, my favorite one is that it's sort of those articles like Gen Z is ruining the workplace, Gen Z doesn't want to work, like laziest, most horrible generation. But I think
Mm.
it's so not true. And I'm not just saying that. I do the research and have the data to back it up because that's part of what we do at the Z-Link is the market research around the world to figure out when people are actually talking about Gen Z, where's their data coming from and is it accurate? And then we get our own. We do our own
Hmm.
surveys worldwide and we pull our own statistics. And then we find things like 56% of Gen Z want to be entrepreneurs or self-employed and work for themselves. And I think, and we see a lot of testaments to that on social media and out in the world. I think Gen Z is such like a resourceful generation and growing up at a time where it's so possible to find like scrappy ways to do what you want to do. And that's, I think, the opposite of just being, defeatist and giving up and being lazy and just not working. I think I see so much pointing to the opposite and so many young people figuring out creative ways to do their thing and to get like financial freedom at an earlier age and just to be really resourceful and smart about how they work. And I think that's a really good trait. I think, yeah, there's like a huge misunderstanding there and so much sort of false information and rhetoric to point you in other directions too. So I think it's important to always keep coming back to the actual data.
That's a great answer. Thank you. And I think, as you say, finding creative, I think people are realizing that they don't necessarily have to climb the corporate ladder anymore. It's finding they're actually kind of inspiring people to create new ways of like the life they want to create, which I think is come
Exactly.
from Gen Z. And I think that's such a
Yeah.
valid point.
Yeah. I mean, for example, when I wrote my book, I was like targeting it towards Gen Z, but then I was getting messages when it was published from people that were much older, and they were saying things like, "Oh, I got this for like my Gen Z daughter or my Gen Z sister," but I ended up reading it and I realized I needed to like make a leap in my own career. And that was sort of unexpected at the time. Like I hadn't expected how much it would resonate with older generations also trying to design their own careers in a different way based on all of those Gen Z principles. So I think that's super interesting and really nice.
I just want to ask a couple more, just maybe a bit more selfish questions as I've got you on the call because I'm just intrigued on your on your
Go for
life.
it. Yeah.
They might not feature. So there's a couple things. Obviously, your Substack and the book. Someone that's well, we'll start with the book. How did that come about? I've always envisioned myself maybe producing a book. Was it something you've always wanted to do? Did someone reach out to you to do it? Like, I'm just very intrigued about that journey.
Of course, yeah. And I don't mind if you keep this in because I've also like written about it publicly. I think it's good to be transparent about like how things
Hmm.
work. Because industries like publishing can be a bit of a mystery sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah, always definitely wanted to write a book. Would love to keep doing it for sure. And I think that's one of the things I'm most aligned with in life is just writing. So in whatever form, I will definitely keep doing that. I so it was always a goal, kind of like you. I was like, I know I'm gonna do this someday, but I was just sort of waiting to, I don't know, have the perfect time or have the perfect idea. And things just don't really ever end up happening that way. My and I got a message on LinkedIn from a commissioning editor at that publishing house that I ended up working with, Kogan Page, and he said, "Hey, do you want to write a book? Never thought about it." And I was like, "Definitely, have thought about it." So we
Hmm.
got on a call and we chatted, and I told him a bit about the things I'm most interested in. I think he was looking for like Gen Z sort of people and Gen Z, kind of in that space, just the Gen Z space. And so we talked about like different things I could write. and who they could be addressed towards. And long story short, I ended up putting together a proposal for something completely different. Then it turned into what is now the book, which is Design Your Life. And it was a proposal for a book where I basically share everything I've learned about building a career in your own terms and sharing everything that no one had ever taught me growing up that would have made my life so much easier in like learning all of the different paths and resources and yeah, and tools that are available that I just had to figure out, that would have been useful to know in advance. For example, things like how does someone that doesn't come from money or that doesn't raise investment, how can someone like that go ahead to be in full-time entrepreneurship, like successfully? Things that I think everyone wonders, and I think we just need to be more transparent about. Everything I've learned, one book. So the way that the process worked is my commissioning editor pitches it internally to the publishing house, and then if he gets buy-in, I get the book deal. And so got the book deal, got my 4-month deadline locked
Sleazy.
in, and yeah, the rest was history. But I had a great editor to work with as well, which was the whole process was really nice because I found it really enjoyable and like such a good challenge, and I loved working with my editor. Like everything was just really, really nice.
And was it everything just touching on that? I just imagine the thought of getting a book deal and then actually having that physical book in your hands. Like, was it everything you thought it'd be?
It's great. Yeah, it's great. Seeing it like in bookstores, like, what? What are you doing here? It
That's
never gets
mental.
old. Literally never gets old, I think. Like if I just need to pick me up, I'll just go into a Waterstones.
That's so
But
cool.
this summer it got translated to Greek as well. So it got republished by a Greek publisher with a completely new cover, and that was such a nice moment because I'm from Greece, but I don't write in Greek. And it was just so cool to have like a Greek translation that reminded me of the books that I used to read when I was a kid. And the cover was like so beautiful, the Greek version, like
Hmm.
obsessed with it. And I think, yeah, that was probably even more exciting because the physical version just looked so pretty. I was like, yeah, this is exactly how it should be.
Nice. If anyone's listening to that, that's your chance to go create. Um, yeah, I guess just finally on Substack, obviously you've grown. Congratulations, by the way, on bestseller. I saw that the other day in
Yay, thank
philosophy.
you.
It's amazing. So
Thank
you've grown
you.
that from. I'm not sure how long you've been writing, but you've grown that from zero to what you're on 33,000 roughly subscribers now. What's that journey been like, and how have you done that?
I love this question. I do. Yeah, I guess when you say what questions do I love, probably questions about Substack. I started writing on Substack maybe like what month is it? December. I'd say I took it seriously just over a year ago, and I had a couple hundred subscribers. And now I'm at like 38,000, which I could have never foreseen. And I think why that happened is like um, one thing that helped is I had one essay go really viral and be shared really widely, like on podcasts, on like Reddit, on TikTok, and then every TikTok would get 500,000 likes. Like it was just on YouTube, just like shared widely outside of my control, and that helped a lot because it brought lots of new people in. Um, but obviously that's not something you can control. I think as far as things you can control, I would say I I have been so intentional about not, and I don't want to be repetitive because I kind of said that before, but like only saying what I find is genuinely authentic to me. And that sounds really broad, but in the moment, when you're finding yourself seeing what's working for others, or you see other creators succeeding and you're wondering, should I be writing about this topic, or should I be doing this, or should I be doing that? Like completely ignoring these thoughts and not giving them any weight at all has been such a big intentional, maybe my only strategy, so that you can remain literally as focused as humanly possible on just like creating what is really authentic to you. And I think, I mean, I by now, I really do believe that the more you do that, the more likely you are to succeed because I think we, kind of- and not even like in a spiritual way, but we literally do become a lot more magnetic when we are expressing ourselves as authentically as possible to opportunities and to people. And I think when you're saying things that are really, really true and really come from you, like come from the heart, that's what makes people resonate with your writing or with the content you're creating or whatever it is. And I think that the like kind of hole you can fall into is writing things that don't even really matter as much to you or that you think they do, but then you realize it's just you're only doing what you think you should be doing. And that's why it's not working because um, I think when you read something that's really written by someone from the heart, you just resonate with it a lot more. Yeah. So I think it's been sort of a very intentional strategy of just staying as close to myself as possible and like ignoring the outside noise. And then seeing that work definitely helps me to keep doing it. It's harder at the beginning when you've got no results. And I definitely wrote a lot of blogs with like 3 likes at a time. So I've been there, but I think you know, you just gotta push through that and do it for like the love of the game. And eventually it does work, and then it makes it a lot easier to keep going.
I think that advice of not seeing what others are doing and trying to copy their strategy and really writing from the heart is really, really great advice. So thank you for that. I think that's all I have for you. I think it's been one of my favorite conversations. I have to say, it's really easy to talk to you, and I think I could do another
Oh, glad. Thank
2 hours on all the stuff you've achieved. But I think for now we'll
Thank you
end it
so
there.
much. Amazing.